trying to say Eve was canceled.
Yes, Adam and Eve were canceled. Yes, they were. They were the first. They were the first to be canceled. You have Joan of Arc. You talk about history. You talk about abolition movement. We talk about it all.
Why would I be anything else when I could be me? No, but seriously, like, I could just do me, Like, I could just live my life as me. Just whole, complete, just myself. Unabridged.
All right, and welcome to episode 18 of Unabridged. And unfortunately, the last episode for season 1. I'm so excited that we are here, but I'm like, well, I guess I have mixed feelings because I definitely am going to miss my Unabridged family, but it's going to be great to take a little break, and then we're going to come back next season with some amazing new guests, some new features, some new ways to live our lives full and complete and whole. So, even though it's a little short goodbye, it's a see you later, really, right? So, before we get into our amazing guest for today, which I'm super excited to close out with this gentleman, like this, he has a lot for you, and he's also super amazing. So I'm super excited for that guest. But before we get into, our lovely journey for the week, we got to get into your favorite segment, my favorite segment, last time for season 1. Let's get into it.
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 Let's get into it. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
All right. Let's get into it for the final time. It's like, no, I keep saying final time, but it's really just, like I said, quick little break. But we have some really great things to talk about at all the levels. Well, I mean, we talked a little bit about this. We have a little bit to talk about the state stuff. Oh, no. Our fun one is also encompassing our state one. Don't you just love when that happens? Okay, lovely. Let's get right into it. So, the council girlies. We're going to start close to home. They have officially, City Council and Mayor Paker have officially passed the first budget of Mayor Parker's term, as well as the first budget of the newly appointed Council President, Kenyatta Johnson, for the fiscal year 2025. Yay! Can I add claps in here? Is there? Yes! Look at me! Look at that. Sound effects. I don't even know if that's going to come through. We'll see. But anyway, they have passed the budget, and it was a standard budget process, I would say. The members started around May and ended right on time on June 13th. They had the final or second reading on June 8th, which is the last time all the members got to vote on it before it was actually passed officially on June 13th, which was also the final session of council before they go on a summer recess. Now, what did this budget give us? This budget gave us exactly what Sherelle Parker promised us, right? And I think that it was only fair. And when you look at the show notes for this week, you'll see the lovely council report. Shout out to City Council for making these lovely reports that are available to the public, which really breaks down and provides links to all the bill numbers, as well as what even happened during the budget session. So we talk a little bit about what Sherelle Parker received. She got money for law enforcement. She got money for cleaning and greening of business corridors, which is a big push for her. And then also she got no new taxes, which was something that has been a campaign promise to her. So definitely came out swinging with the campaign promises. But I think that some of the really highlights that I want to bring forward are some of the things that council was able to bring through. But again, a team effort. Right? Team effort, because we have to negotiate with, or the council has to negotiate with the mayor's office in order to get anything done through this budget cycle. So number one, the homestead exemption, and the homestead exemption is a program, right? Which is a lot of other cities don't have this, especially in cities with high home ownership. It protects homeowners if out of nowhere the valuations of their home skyrocket, meaning that their tax bills now skyrocket, right? So this now, if you apply for this program, it gives you a level of protection, so that way you're not being bombarded by this new crazy assessment, right? That your home is now worth $1 million when it used to be worth $150,000. And that's really what is going on in the city of Philadelphia, as we start to see a lot of our real estate prices change. Philly is a hot hot real estate market. So, we are consistently assessing and reassessing and assessing again the values of the land of Philadelphia. And, because of that, we have to provide some level of protection. So that program has now gone up to $100,000 as the cap, right? For how much someone can get support, or if their bills have changed. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because a lot of people don't know this program exists. And for my unabridged followers who are homeowners, you need to look into this, girl. You need to know about this. Look into the homestead. It is very helpful. The second thing that council really brought forward, which was an increase of $19 million to the rental assistance program, which will now make this program permanent. Now, this program started in the pandemic when people were not able to pay their rents, and members like Member Gaudier and Member Kenyonis Sanchez, Member Kendra Brooks came forward in a housing committee to provide this level of protection for homeowners so that they wouldn't just be getting evicted, but then also so that homeowners or the landlords can find a way to get some payment, because they got to pay their mortgage too, girlies. So this program really was like this, groundbreaking program where, they talked about it in DC, that was supposed to have like mediation, or does have mediation between landlords and tenants, and, helps them come to an agreement around payment, because times are hard, right? We're not going to act like times aren't hard. Inflation is real. The rebound or the reback from the pandemic is hitting us all right now, and people just really aren't grasping that. And that is what we're going to also talk about in our our next one with your boy Trump, because we had to talk about him. So those are two really awesome programs, in addition to so many amazing programs being funded across the city, nonprofits. I think that that's probably one of the things that people don't realize is a lot through this process. Small to medium to large nonprofits do receive city funding in order to provide free programming across the city of Philadelphia. Programs like After School Activities Partnership, the Horticultural Society, like so many of these programs are beneficial of city funds, and that is how, tax dollars are really advocated these days, is through these program providing nonprofits, right? So it's out there. You just gotta search for it. They are out there. So city council budget, it was cute. It was fine. We'll see for the second one. The second thing that we're talking about, a part of our big three for the week. So Trump and Hunter Biden were both found guilty, right? But let's talk about the Trump one first, because that is one we were most excited about. Let's see if we can do this again. Woohoo! Another one. Ah! And maybe even this. Wait, one more. Hey. Trump was found guilty of, let's get him, girl, 34 felony counts, right? 34 for falsifying records and documents to what? Pay hush money to a prostitute, so that way she would not speak and hurt the 2016 election, right? What? Found guilty officially, right? Sentencing is supposed to be set for July 11th. Of course, he's not sitting in jail. They let him go in his own recognizance or whatever. But it's official, girlies. He's a felon, a freaking felon. Now, I think we could be excited about this just for a little while. It's really nice, But at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean shit to the girls, because he can still run. He could literally still become the Republican nominee, which actually is going to take place a couple of days before they're supposed to be sentencing him. And he continues to keep running. Actually, they're using this election, or they're using the fact that he was found guilty as a way to raise money. They are calling this man a political prisoner. You are not Nelson Mandela, Trump. What do you think this is? This is ridiculous. So the judge, and then his team is also looking to set an appeal, or also to push forward with an appeal, because they don't like the judge. They felt like my man was not biased enough. Girlie, what? Sit down. At the end of the day, who actually put forward this ragtag, this jury. Shout out to this jury who held it down and made sure they came through with a guilty conviction. And at the end of the day, that was not guaranteed, because you don't know who's a Trumper and who's not a Trumper. People say that when you're in a jury, you're supposed to be unbiased, but actually, who's ever really unbiased? But shout out to those jurors for getting it the freak right. He still has 3 other trials, both local and federal, in Atlanta and Washington for I don't know, trying to overthrow the government. This is absolutely ridiculous. And the crazy thing is that, that people are going to allow him to move forward with this. And if he could actually push these things forward enough, he could actually try to find a way to win, because we're not going to take that off the table. And then when he becomes president, like, remove all his charges, or what do they call it? Pardon himself from all these charges. If that were to happen, I might have to move out of United States of America. I might have to come see what Justin Trudeau and the girls are doing. I don't know, because at the end of the day, Mexico got a lady president. So I don't know, because this is looking really wild, and I don't feel good about the prospects of this. And also, there's another sect of this that is brewing, right? Because the Trump campaign is now starting to create direct campaigns to go not only after the black community, but after black males, black men in particular, not black women, but black males in particular. And I think that some of these things are actually working, because either a lot of the narratives from the black male community is that they are riding with Trump. And we got excuse me, I'm sorry. That just made me so bad. And we got people like Amber Rose and Sexy Red endorsing Trump. Like, what is happening? So no, this trial has not hurt him. It likely will not hurt him. But it is nice to say that he is finally considered a felon under the court of law. Wear that label on your forehead, Trump. Felon. You can't even vote in Florida. You can't. Now, on the other hand, which is actually positive for Democrats, which is so weird to say that, was that Hunter Biden was convicted of 3 counts of falsifying documents around owning a gun when he was facing a major addiction issue. I don't even remember the year. I think it was like around 2018. And Hunter actually wrote about this in his book. And the special jury decided to come forward with this proceeding and use what he wrote about in his book as a way to press charges against him. And he had a really short trial, to be honest. It was maybe like a week. And they had people like his ex-wife and his brother's ex-wife, testify about him having the gun, him talking about having guns, and, when he was under the influence. I mean, yes. These charges face up to 25 years. And he is sad. Joe is sad. Mrs. Joe Biden was back there too during the trial. We're all sad. They made his daughter testify. This is wild. And I say this is wild because this is considered a political case. Like, how often do you know that somebody doing something like this to purchase a gun? And who would have really cared? Not to be like, oh, did anybody die? But it's not like they were like, oh, like, this is one case compounded on the fact that then Hunter Biden went on a shooting spree of a mall in America. Like, no, that is not the case, right? But at the end of the day, I'm happy they found him guilty, because if they had not, the Republican girls would have been like, see, look, we told you the justice system is not fair. Look what they did to him. So, Hunter, my boo, you are a martyr. You're a martyr. I'm sorry. I hope that you get a check. I hope, usually when you take a bid, they say we're going to take care of your family and take care of you afterwards. So if you get some time, I hope that the Bidens work this out, and the Democratic Party, low key, give you a lookout, because that you deserve it, sir. Now, I'm not camping for Hunter Biden. I don't know him. I didn't read his story. He could be a raggedy individual, but I know that the only reason why he is going through this is because his dad is running for president. Period. Poo. Period. Poo, right? Like, that's the only reason why he's going through this. So at the end of the day, Hunter Biden is a martyr. And he needs to get that check when he come out of jail if they give him time. Hopefully they don't, because they say he's a first-time offender. So hopefully he just get a fine and some, like, house arrest. You know how they do the white boys. But still, martyr. All right. So that's what's going on at the Fed sides. Everybody guilty. But it's okay. Well, actually, no, it's not okay. It's actually horrible. I feel like we're like living in some kind of post-world Colombia or something like that. Like our like, government is being ruled by people who are like locked up in jail. Like what are we? South Africa apartheid time? Like this is ridiculous. This is supposed to be clean democracy. We're supposed to be like the original democracy or whatever the girls say, and we look foolish. If I was in other countries, I would be laughing at us. That, you know what? I feel like that is why nobody is listening to America around any of this shit, because they're just like, you know what, girl, we might be dealing with Trump in a couple of years, so what we're not about to be doing is listening to you about our foreign policies. And I'm talking about what's going on with Russia and what's going on with Ukraine. I'm talking about what's going on with Palestine and the freaking Hamas. They are not listening to us because we look crazy right now, and we do look crazy internally. Get it together, America, please. Get it together. All right, the last one I want to talk about, which a lot of the girls have been talking about for a little while, but I just wanted to explain it on my show because that is what Unabridged is here for, to explain and debunk some things for the girls. Jay-Z is out here lying to the girls. And you know what? No, not Jay-Z. Double XL is lying to the girls. So I'm going to just put a picture up of the article that's there because, of course, the article is not even available no more. I've been Googling for days and I can't find it any longer. And they said that Jay-Z is basically giving $300 million to Philly schools. Wrong. Let me see. Can I do another one? I don't really like that one. Don't got another one? How about that? That's supposed to be embarrassed. Anyway, they over here lying on Jay-Z, first of all, and then, but the truth of the matter though, it's not any better, right? So like they lied on them, but honestly, the truth isn't great. But let's talk about it. So this article came out talking about Jay-Z is giving $300 million to fill these schools. But what's actually happening is that Jay-Z and Roc Nation have basically been contracted by, I guess, Josh Shapiro and his folks in order to raise a campaign to get $300 million in scholarships, and my quotes, for schools and for kids across Pennsylvania, not Philly only, across Pennsylvania, to attend private schools. Now, for those of you who do not know what that is a voucher, period. And this is not Jay-Z's money. This is taxpayer dollars. So what's happening right now is that the state has a exorbitant, like, what do you call it? Like a residual of cash right now, right? Like our spends are not as high as our gains, and we basically have a crazy surplus, right? The state has a surplus. So what they're trying to do is they want to create a campaign to direct some of those surplus dollars and other dollars from the state budget to go towards this voucher program, right? But the way they made it seem was if they're just going to be giving it to schools, which is what actually should be done in the first place, right? Like, to subsidize education and just basically give it more to private schools is taking away from our public institutions. Those funds and those young people should be going to public institutions in order to provide additional resources to these schools. Now, nobody wants their kid to be a guinea pig. Nobody at all, and you just gotta eat it and take your kids to public schools. But there are ways that we could spread this money around in order for it to be advantageous to students in school now and in the future. But that is not what is going to happen with these $300 million campaign to vouchers, right? Or you know what? Let me not say it's not going to happen. We just don't know what's going to happen with this $300 million campaign for vouchers. But one thing I know for sure, and we got to clear up, is that Jay-Z is not giving us $300 million. Period. He's just not. That's not what's occurring, and we're going to have to move forward with that. Now, we still have to understand that the state has not settled on a proper funding formula for the schools of Pennsylvania, meaning that we still don't have a way, or have decided upon a way, that schools should be funded at an equitable way in order for them to have enough resources for schools, teachers, and everything in between. We don't even have that yet, but we got a campaign with Jay-Z. Come on, Joshy. We know you're trying to run for Gov, but like, just look out for us first. Like, we know what you're doing here. We see it. But like, just think about us. Like, you're gonna want us to hold you down when you go up to that swing, when you start looking at these swing votes, right? So come on, Josh. Think about us right now, because this campaign ain't it. And Jay-Z, your teams, a part of me I don't blame them all the way, but I kind of do, because this is also supported by Jeffrey Yaz, and it's like, are you guys in this weird conglomerate of like rich motherfuckers who are just doing whatever y'all want? And I don't just, that kind of billionaire scheme, whether black or white, just scares me. I don't care. It's still scary. So at the end of the day, they got a lot to be answering for, and they were not a part of the Excel article. I don't believe that there was any quotes from Jay-Z in the article. Like, they just kind of like blast that out for clickbait, and it wasn't accurate. But at the end of the day, the truth is no better. So that's what's going on this week. So make sure to follow me on Instagram and YouTube, because what we are going to do is, while we're on our break, is do like mini let's get into it, so we can talk about some things that are happening even while we're away. So Instagram, just Unabridged Podcast, and same thing on YouTube. Now let's take a quick little break, and then we'll get into our Unabridged journey for the week. Hello, Unabridged family. It's your host, Dom Miller. And as you've been hearing, our season is coming to an end, but we are planning for season 2. And with that, we need some more amazing people who live their selves, their full unedited selves. And if that's you, or you know someone who is just completely unabridged, let me know. I want them to be on the show. So DM me or visit us on the website. That's UNABRDG podcast.com, and let me know if you want to join the show. Like, you want to.
Unabridged.
Okay, and welcome to the next leg of the Unabridged journey. Again, I'm your host, Dom Miller, and I am so excited to be here today, and I am so excited for this guest, as I always am. But for me, this is going to be like, this is a big get, and this isn't even just because I'm going to try to gas you up this whole time, but it's really just because, when you look at the resume, editor of Eater Philly, award-winning journalist and CEO of your own media company, political writer at large at Philadelphia Magazine, and the president of the Philadelphia Association for Black Journalists, I am so honored to have on the show today Mr. Ernest Owens. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
I'm so excited to have this conversation. When I started the show, I told Isaiah, I was like, I'm going to have Ernest on one day, but I have to like prepare myself for that, because I want to be ready.
Oh, goodness.
What? This is you're a professional. I'm the novice in this. So
I
I'm
like
just like
professionalism, so we're here for that, but like, I don't bite.
Oh, goodness.
Not here.
Well, how are you feeling today before we jump right into it?
I feel good. I'm really excited about this month. A lot of great opportunities have been happening in my life, so I've been just maximizing everything. I'm really here for the spring and the summer.
I love the spring. And something about this is just like, let me just find some new stuff to do. Like, let me just open up to a new page, and I love that. So I gave like your little description in the beginning, but how do you describe yourself?
I describe myself as a truth teller. I definitely am an advocate. I am a proud big brother to some young brothers who are just really doing some great work. I am a loving husband. I am, a really great best friend. I think I'm a great friend. And I'm also just the person that just wants to keep things 100 and keep it real and speak truth to power and take risks. I'm a big risk taker. And I would say those are my big things. And I'm also someone who loves to have fun.
That's good.
I'm a great curator of fun. I would definitely say that. I love to have fun.
You need that balance, speaking truth, but also bringing a good time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No, I love that. So, I mean, I've had the opportunity to kind of watch your journey through politics and as a writer through time. And I think a lot of people have been able to see your journey as you've grown. But can you talk a little bit about how do you get to where you are right now, going from a student at University of Penn to being one of the leading writers and voices in the political space in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I mean, I started off to some people being a joke to now being someone who is a serious matter. When I started off in this business, really 10 years ago, roughly, I came right out of college. I graduated from Penn in 2014 and set off to do journalism. I decided I wanted to stay in Philadelphia. And it was a very interesting route because I was not from here originally. I was born in Chicago, but grew up in Houston, Texas. And, I was young, I was black, I was openly gay, and was very passionate about what I was seeing around me. Because as someone who lived in other parts of the country, the Midwest and the South, I look at in major American cities, right? I look at Philly, I'm like, Philly is a great place, but this is just it's not the best it can be. And I felt like there were people who were not really making Philadelphia its own potential. And I sometimes would argue that Philly is its own worst enemy. The people that are really causing some of the problems here are not outsiders. It's really people who live in the city through nepotism, cronyism, through political maneuvering that has really kept the city, in shackles. And when I started to recognize that through internships, fellowships, and places that I was navigating within the city, both in the public and private sector, I didn't want to leave. I felt like just leave and go to New York or go to LA and whatnot just would have been a missed opportunity to be a part of the change and the difference. And so I've spent the past 10 years of my journalism career in Philadelphia being able to prove to people that, one, you could be successful in this city and not have to leave. And you can also be able to affect change and make a difference. And that has been a big thing of what drives my work, is making a difference by keeping people informed and empowered.
See, I love that, because I think about that a lot of times too with folks like yourself. It's just like, you're right, you could have left, right? Especially with like connections and having gone to Ivy Leagues and things like that.
They still trying to drag. They
like
still
you
trying to
could
grab me.
you could have left, but I love that you said that you wanted to be a part of this change. And media has always been such a major role in any of our movements, right? It was like, how are we getting our voices out there, but also who was holding a lot of these elected officials accountable, so that way change could happen. And I agree with you, right? Like I'm from Philadelphia, and I left and I came back home. And I always say, because this is a place that I want to make change, because I know how beautiful it is, even though how bad it is right now. Like, and I feel that, and I always wonder, like, why does he want to be here? He could go. He could go away. He doesn't have to stay in Philly.
But I kind of like the big fish in the small pond. That's been my trajectory throughout my career. I don't like to go places where it's too many big folks in the same place, because they're bumping heads, and also we're not utilizing our resources. When we talk about political change, everyone is living all in the East Coast and liberal cities and places, and people are saying, well, how can we change the way voters do in the South and other areas? It's like, you got to migrate there. You got to go in those different places. And so I just feel like, to give New York another great journalist, another great superstar, when they got a bunch of superstars, it's just extra. LA the same, but Philly, I felt like there was opportunity to become a journalism star and a media star, am I right, and really help put the city on the map when it comes to that kind of work. I mean, there's other great people doing good work too, but it was no one like me in the city doing what I do the way I do it. And that's why I just was like, I can come here and make the most of it. Like, when I was in high school, I remember when I was younger, I had a choice to go to this really good magnet school that was called Kerr. And it was this magnet school for gifted and talented students. It was a smaller crop. They had more resources. But I also had the choice to go to ELSIC, which was the largest, one of the biggest schools in the state of Texas. Had about like 5,000 kids in my school, about 1,000 kids in my graduating class. And that was the main public school. And I remember being in the car with my mom, and she was like, listen, you could come here and do good at Kerr, or you can come to ELSIC and be a rock star, make a decision. I was like, let me go to ELSIC and see. And I went and I became the class president. I was a valedictorian, got accepted to several Ivy League schools, and I made the most of it. And so that's always been my mindset, is go to places that need your help, need your support. Go places where, you can make a real impact and difference. It's so easy to go to New York. It's so easy to go to LA. It's so easy to go to some of these other places. Philly was an interesting place to navigate. I had to go through all of the nepotism, all of the people being like, you're not from here, blah, blah, blah. I had to deal with all of that. But at the end, to be where I'm at today is a testament to that. So I know that if I can do this in Philly, I can go anywhere and do what I do.
I love
it
that.
Not be as crazy.
That's going to be the title. If I can make it in Philly, I can make it anywhere.
It's true. It's true, especially in this industry.
Yes,
Listen.
no, I agree. And I think, that's why I'm so happy that you're on, because the fact that, one of our leading voices in the city of Philadelphia in politics right now is a Black gay man says so much about where we are right now. I don't know if you remember this when in council a couple weeks ago, Safira was like, Philly is the gayest city. And everybody was just like, hold on, wait, what? And it was kind of just like this moment. But I think that, with your position and people like Andre Carroll, shout out to Dre, we are starting to see a shift. And I think a lot of it too is just that it's not about, I'm a Black gay man in this space. It's just that I can be anything I want to be in this space.
Right.
I just so happen to be a Black gay male.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think one of the things that I have fought against is that there are people who claim that they're not a part of the opposition and trying to create barriers for people like myself. But then they always keep saying, well, you got to consider this, you got to consider something. Well, who am I going to consider it to? Like, who's going to step to me? Like, who's going to give me this hurdle, say you can't do this because of this. Now, when I started early in my career, you got to remember this is 2014, 2015, Marriage Equality had just happened. There was a lot of things being said out loud that isn't said anymore. I know that we still are amongst bigots and people like that, but people are now being in a position where they have to think about it differently. And I've seen people change. I remember when I first came to the business, a lot of people had different assumptions and stereotypes. And then as their kids began to get older and their kids came out in things, a lot of stereotypes about how people are raised and how people or whatever went out the window, because then they had to reflect on themselves and the things that they said to other people. So I have been in a position where I've been able to thrive long enough in Philadelphia to see people apologize, to see people course correct and change their tune. And I've been open and receptive to it. I'm not one of those people. There's a great song when I grew up in Houston from Mike Jones. Back then, didn't want me now. How they all want me. I love that song. I grew up on that. That is an anthem. And I'm in a position where I'm not looking at people and saying, no, don't talk to me because you did this back in the. I'm more in a space now like, okay, if you're serious and sincere, I'm willing to open. I'm willing to work on some things in a very meaningful place. I don't ever forget.
Right.
But I can forgive people who are intentional.
Oh, I love
some
that.
people.
So where does that come from, right? Like, where does that, I don't want to call it gusto. That's such a corny word, right? But I feel like to have that confidence and to also have that, I mean, clearly you're very educated, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, where does that personality side come from? Because I feel like it's very different than a lot of other people in the city, for sure, right?
I'm not. Well, I think part of it is I'm not from here, so I have a certain standard and expectation that I think some people have gotten too accustomed to in Philly. There's not to say that people don't have standards here. People definitely do, but I think when I got here, I was just like, that's not the way it should be. And be like, there's like this little Philly shrug where it's like, this is the way it's supposed to, this is the way it's been, that's the way it is. I'm like, no, you can do this. And they're like, what you mean? I'm like, you can, demand more, you can call it out. Because I do believe that direct action gets the goods. I still believe that. But I get it from my mom and my grandmother. My grandmother's no longer here, but a lot of the persona of just being like, for me specifically, it was mindset of like, if you live in a world where people statistically expect you not to succeed, then my mindset is, then what am I considering? I think actually if I was like a white, straight Christian man in Philadelphia or any part of America, I would actually feel even more, nervous because the world expects so much from you. And so if you underdeliver, underperform, that burden is stressful. No one's expecting anything from me. No one's not expecting me to succeed or do anything. No. People, it's a shame. This is a shame, but I'm turning this into something that for me was motivation. No one expected me to succeed. So for me, it was like, well, let me just do everything. Let me take all the risks, because if I fail, then they'll say, I knew he was going to fail. But if I succeed, then they have to sit there and shut up.
Right.
And so for me, my mindset has always been, no one's expecting me to keep going or doing higher. So for me, the goal is limitlessness. That's a theme in my life, limitlessness in so many different ways. But that was my thing. It was like, I don't have anyone holding me to a standard. Like, they don't. This young black queer men, young black men in general, young black people in general. No one expects us to do what we do. So because there's no one putting that expectation, I can create my own levels. I can create my own standard to succeed, because they basically wrote us off after 25, 26, or even 18.
That's so crazy you describe it like that, and I definitely see it from that view, and I feel like a lot of times society makes us see it in the opposite effect, is that all the stuff that I am doing is to prove that I am worth something, and you're just like, y'all didn't expect it from me anyway, so I'm just going to do it. I don't have nothing to prove
to anyone but myself. I've been in a race with myself. My competition is myself.
Get into it.
No, I do. I compete with 2023 Ernest right now. Okay, here's what I did in 2023. My mindset has always been, if I am running the race as fast as I could without looking at anyone else, when I make that point, if I succeed other people in it, then yeah, I won. If I don't, I can never be mad at myself because I did the best that I could. If I am comparing myself or competing with other people, then I'm judging myself based on what they could do. But is that my best?
Right.
Being better than someone else is not my best. It's surpassing their best. Their best isn't my best.
Right.
So I have had situations in this industry where I've just said, look, I'm looking at nothing but me and my goals, and hit metrics that surpass. And if I would have looked, when I looked at whatever that metric was for someone else, I said, wow, because I didn't look at them, I did twice as better, 3 times as better than what they did. Because I was just focused on what my best ability is. So every time I'm in a space, I'm looking at how I'm going to be better than what I did the year before and keeping up with my own personal life goals to achieve that. And so that's how I've been. I've been my own competition.
I love that. It's like your own self motivation.
Oh,
So that means that
absolutely.
no matter what is going on around you, it's like I'm
Yeah.
still going to keep pushing. And I think a lot of people allow for external environment to get in the way, but when you're in line with your own star player, which is what it sounds like to me, it's like it doesn't matter what y'all got going on. I know that these are my goals and I can get that done by myself. And I feel like
Absolutely.
we've seen the fruits of those results
Yeah,
over the
it's
last
not-
couple of years.
It's not for anybody.
Right,
It's for me.
right, right.
and then I take those tools and I use them as a sense of inspiration. You know, recently I became a proud member of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the first Black Greek letter fraternity in the world.
Yes, that was one of my
Okay,
questions.
1906. You know, I gotta rep it. But I'm a proud Alpha, and you know, from that experience, even doing that, people were surprised and shocked. I'm like, don't know why, but they could be shocked for them. But anybody who was close friends to me and family knew that this was something I was always interested in, and I did it when I felt ready to do it.
Right.
You know, that journey for me. And I think a lot of times people will have you on their own time clock. But I always tell people it's for me. You know, I wrote a new book that came out. This is for you, signed for you.
Thank you.
This is a signed copy for you, but it's the
Thanks.
Case for Counsel Culture, and it came out last year.
you.
And people were like, oh, I thought you was going to write a memoir or biography about your life.
Right.
I'm like, I'm in my early 30s. I got more life to live.
Right, right.
And if I would have wrote that book, the biography, a year ago or 2 years ago, it definitely would need to update now. And so I just want to live more and live life. And I want to do the things that make sense for me. Too many people will tell you, well, I thought this, I thought that. Well, I don't have those thoughts for other people, what they need to be doing. You know, people like when it comes to life experiences, people
Yeah.
be like, well, I would expect you to have this by now, do this by now.
I don't think about your life that much.
I think about life in that way. Now, if
Right.
it comes to policy or implementation of work or things, that's different. But when it comes to people's personal life, I don't set parameters and goals on other people's life. But people have a parasocial relationship with me. That's part of being a little bit, I guess, famous. Is that people will have these parasocial relationships. Like there's people that DM me all the time say, "You my best friend," in my head, and I don't know how to take it sometimes. Sometimes it's flattering, and sometimes it's like, okay, that's okay. But then the problem with that is that you get into stand culture and people who start to expect you to align with everything they believe. And I'm different. Like
Right.
you can't put me in a progressive box all the way. You can't put me in a moderate box. I'm a practical box. I'm a
Right.
pragmatic progressive is what I like to say.
I love that. I love that. I love pragmatic progressive because I mean you can be reasoned with.
Reasonable.
Where you can
yeah,
reason with
like,
somebody.
Sometimes, and also you got to be functional with the world you live in. Like I'm like, do you want to be right or do you want to win?
Right.
And you can be both, but one is going to require patience, time, and grace. And I think certain spaces do not provide that on either side of an issue. They don't provide that nuance. And being a Black queer person in America's political structure, this country owes me. It owes you as a
Yes,
Black woman.
yes.
It owes us. And so when people try to act like they don't see race and they don't see these unique differences, yeah, I'm going to ask everybody questions. I don't trust any of these people in these spectrums. I'm going to interrogate progressives the way I'm going to interrogate conservatives. I'm going to interrogate everybody because I find it that if all of you all who's in these positions of power and privilege was so good and so right, why do it always seems like in each of these scenarios, Black people like us are finding ourselves still scrapping? Every situation, you can name every single box, and we are at the bottom tier of representation and power when it comes to these particular segments. Each of them.
That's why when I get into these conversations with these DSA members and people who want to get back to that model, I'm like, at the end of the day, there's always going to be a hierarchy, and my people always end up ending at the bottom of any of these
And if you're not,
hierarchies.
and you know what I think is a self-accountability. If you're not going to be in a position of accountability where you can look at yourself and say, you know what, I didn't do this good enough, or we can work on this better, or, you know, if you're not even coming at it like that, you're just coming like everything's great, everything's the best. There's nothing I'm doing or any space that I'm in where I can't name things that need improvement, whether it's in journalism, whether it's in, you know, nonprofit work, advocacy, whatever it is, everything could always use improvement. So I'm never one of these people that just think like everything's the best. There's no accountability that can be held somewhere. Oh no. And I will be the one to be the first to interrogate before anybody else tell me to in the space that I'm in. You don't gotta tell people be coming to me like, well, talk about the progressives. I do.
Right.
Everybody get that work. I don't think I'm in a space where both sides don't like me. The moderate Democrats had their feelings, the progressives had their thoughts about me. That's good. Me, I'm doing my job.
Right.
But the reality is that as a black man in America, I shouldn't be in a position where I'm critical to these places because we are often used as the mules and the tools to promote the causes. They say working families party, advocating for working black families. Well, maybe you're not working the way I need you to for the families and places that I come from.
Right.
Like I grew up working class. Some of the ways in which they're describing and talking about these issues in communities that I come from, maybe you're not doing it right. Or maybe you don't have the right people knocking on the doors. So that's why you're losing by 42, 46 votes in West Philly. And I live in West Philly. And I can tell you how they lost.
Right.
But people will say to me, well, how did that happen? We don't know because you're too busy on Twitter. Twitter does not, look, I'm a Twitter king. I still
Twitter
call it
does
Twitter.
not win
I don't
races.
call it X. But it don't because you have to understand what that group is.
Exactly.
And so I use my time talking to those people that's on there to tell them where they went wrong.
Right.
But that's not the space. That's why you keep having these surprises, which for black folks who's in those areas, it's not a surprise to us.
Right.
I'm not surprised by any of these races, to be honest. I haven't been shocked in a long time.
So I want to shift to some like more in depth of the things that you've done, and you mentioned this very briefly, but you have an amazing book out called "The Case for Cancer Culture."
Yes.
So before we get into the book, I want you to tell me what does cancer culture mean to Ernest Owens, because I feel like everybody has their own definitions of it. I'm gonna pop it up here so it's in the
beautiful.
shot.
Yeah, great. So my book, The Case for Cancel Culture, How This Democratic Tool Works to Liberate Us All, is an adult nonfiction book, which was big for me. I didn't want to do any memoirs. I didn't want to do any books about struggle and this. And I wanted to do something completely different, unexpected. Like people, I think, would expect me to write a book about race or about LGBTQ issues. This book encompasses all those issues. And this topic, The Case for cancel culture, I define is when a person chooses to cancel a person, place, a thing that they feel like does not align with their values. So it's a very personal yet political move. You're making a decision to say, you know what, and there's no right or wrong to it, arguably, but we make these decisions, these conscientious decisions based on our own beliefs. So we might say, you know, I don't want to go to Starbucks because Starbucks, their president, their institution supports anti-LGBTQ policies. You know, I don't want to listen to Drake because I'm not really feeling the way that Drake demeans black women. You're making these decisions yourself. And sometimes, you know, again, there's no right or wrong to how what drives it, but it's how it works.
Right.
And so I argue in this book that cancel culture in this way, as we the people, we make conscious decisions to cancel things for better, for worse, and different people do it, and we all do it, and we should learn how to understand how this has been in our DNA since the beginning of time. I argue in this book, we start from Adam and Eve, and then we end at the baby being canceled, arguably, you know, for what he did at Rolling Loud.
So you trying to say Eve was canceled?
Yes, Adam and Eve were canceled. Yes, they were. They were the first. They were the first to be canceled. You have Joan of Arc. You talk about history. You talk about abolition movement. We talk about it all.
Right.
The Boston Tea Party.
Oh
Because
my
the reality is you have to cancel with a real reason. So you can't say, for example, I'm canceling Chick-fil-A because I don't like the way the food tastes. That's a matter of taste.
Right.
I'm talking about there is a personal, moral, ethical dilemma that's at stake here. It's sophisticated. And so when people say, oh, y'all don't like the new Kevin Hart movie because you canceling Kevin Hart, you don't like his movie. Maybe you cancel Kevin Hart because he's homophobic, but if you thought he's not funny, which I don't think he is that funny, then arguably that's not cancel culture.
Right.
But what has happened is the most powerful people in the world are so against cancel culture, whether they're Republicans or Democrat. Trump and Obama have something in common. Dave Chappelle and them have something in common. They all hate cancel culture. Because cancel culture in many ways hold them accountable. When we choose not to support a movement or something they're doing or an item or them at the polls, we're choosing to cancel them based on some type of real purpose. They don't like that accountability because in many ways, the goal for them is just to do what they want. And so I argue that cancel culture, if you look at it in a different mindset, is really about holding powerful people and institutions accountable.
I love that. And I think for me, it seems a lot more personal than I thought it was, right?
Yeah.
Because I think when people think of cancel culture, they think of like a mass canceling of somebody, right? Like we don't, none of us now frequent his stuff and none of us now do that. But the way you describe it is very personal for you. And I actually kind of like that better than the mass, right? Because I feel like when it's the massive one, it feels like there's a point of no return for people.
Well, I mean, and you know what? I would say, well, sometimes the goal would be to do movement. It can be individual and massive, but the reality is that we talk a lot about this argument around grace, but I argue some people don't deserve it. Some people don't. And people who do, and it was interesting enough when people make the argument about, oh, there's no return, or people just can't. I can't think of too many cases where people were completely not canceled, didn't get chances. R. Kelly, Chris Brown, are these people really like, I mean, R. Kelly is canceled because of the law, right? But like even Harvey Weinstein's getting, got a case overturned. And there's some people that still rock with Woody Allen in spite of the stuff he do. So even Dave Chappelle, is he really fully canceled? But there are people who have, right? There has been people who have tarnished these people, rightfully so, for things they've done. But I would argue that the reality is that if we're in a democratic society, people should have the right and the voice to make decisions that speak to their rights. And if people are really trying to make the reality to repair, then that has to come from them, not the people who've been oppressed.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I have to respect your time, and I want to get you out of here because I know you got a brunch to go to next,
Of
too.
course.
So you definitely hit a couple of topics that I wanted to talk about. But I have to ask the question I asked everybody for the show. The show is called Unabridged, which means to be your full, unedited self. What does that mean to you to be completely unabridged, to be fully unedited?
It really means to operate from a space of self-liberation and self-preservation. Too often people will say, speak your truth, tell it how it is. And I recognize that everyone has different levels of that. And so it's about having individual agency to make those decisions. I have afforded myself, one of my biggest accomplishments is not even so much about a material thing, but that I have been very strategic my entire life of giving myself the opportunity, the privilege, and I would even say luxury to be able to be as unapologetically myself while being able to make a living and be able to maintain a really great relationship with various institutions, people, and places and things. That when people meet me and they put me onto a project, no one has to wonder what they're getting into. People know that either you take me as I am or you just don't take me at all.
Right.
Some people have to feel like, oh, if you get into different spaces, you have to completely change this and change that. I am a one-stop shop. If you get me, you know what you're getting. Every relationship, whether it's friendships, whether it's I'm with my husband. We've been married for nearly 3 years, but we've been together for 10 years. He is not confused with who I am,
Right.
and neither are my friends. If you choose to rock with me, you know what you getting. But you're getting a good person. You're getting a compassionate person. You're getting someone who's about that life. And so, I love the fact that that no matter where I go, I've been protected from even situations where I think some folks would have been like, oh, well, they would have tried me. But because of the fact that I am so open about who I am and what I am, people think twice. And so I don't have too many moments where I could say I was betrayed or done wrong or whatever, because I think people recognize okay, if we come to him, we got to come correct or just don't come at all.
Right.
And so I've been spared from a lot of really messy situations, I would say, because of the fact that I have leaned on that. And I want more people to trust their instinct and not be so afraid to just be their honest self, because eventually it's gonna come out in some type of way.
Yes.
If you suppressing yourself for so long, you're gonna have a moment. And so I don't have moments where I'm flipping the table often or blow it up, because when I'm mad,
Right.
I'm mad. When I'm glad, I'm glad. And that's been my shape. And then the last thing I will say too is this working in the space of just gratitude. Things could always be better than what it was, or this and this and this. But I must be real and say that I'm just so happy to be just grateful for what I have achieved thus far. I am always ambitious. I always want other things. But I will say that I'm always just thankful that, you know what, where I'm at right now is good enough. If nothing changed today, I am happy where I'm at right now. And so just having in a space of consistently being grateful about opportunities and relationships that you have. People say, well, what's your goal in 10 years? To be better where I'm at now. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not going to put a place mark there, because I've tried to do that in my 20s, and I realized I was surpassing goals faster. I thought I was going to write a book by 40.
Right.
I did it, but I got the book deal by 30. So I just say to myself, let's be kind to ourselves. Let's be gentle with ourselves when we aspire to do things. Let's not be so hard and create these unrealistic expectations too early in our lives. Just be grateful and take it all in.
And that has been an affirmation by Mr. Ernest Owens.
Say that.
No, I love that. I love that so much. I really appreciate you so much for coming on the show today.
you.
This conversation has been very eye-opening, and I hope that, the listeners really heard what you said, because not only do you have not only can you say it, but you have the things to back it up, and that's why I was so happy that you decided to be on the show today.
Of course.
So before we close out, or the last thing I say, do you want to share anything, or how can people follow along with you to keep going on? What's going on,
I'm
Mr.
all
Ernest?
over the internet. Just Ernest Owens. You can Google me. I can't even name it. The handle is Mr. Ernest Owens on Twitter and Instagram. ErnestOwens.com is my website. I'm not hard to find out here.
Right. Well, no, thank you so much for joining the journey. And that has been season 1 of Unabridged. I'm so happy that you all have joined me on this journey. Be sure to follow us on Instagram to stay up to date on what we're working on. And of course, our mini Let's Get Into It segments. And as always, we look forward to seeing you again. And thank you for joining the journey.